Welcome to the GMS Magazine, everyone. I am Paco Garcia, your host, and
This is Chris from DSX Machina. How are you?
I'm fine. But before that, before we say any of that, I need to tell people that this is a podcast all about role-playing games, board games, and the people who make them. Sometimes the people who play them, but only sometimes. I mean, like every time, but sometimes. So anyway, I'm fine. I'm pretty good. I just had dinner, which is excellent because if I don't, then I get all cranky.
And I just had lunch.
Wow.
Speaking of, you should have a surprise, but it may take a couple weeks to get there.
Okay.
I sent you crackers a couple weeks ago, but knowing shipping, it may take 4 to 6 weeks to get there. Yes.
I'm going
finally
to do an unboxing of crackers.
Oh, God. It'll be like squished. You'll be dipping the bag back to get the crumbs.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I need to cough. Excuse me a second, humans. So anyway, we have a few things to talk about. I only have one piece of news that made me super duper happy over the last few days. And is that I don't know exactly the name, TSR hobby museum store shop that had nothing to do with TSR, wasn't a museum, and was on sale for 5 million not long ago at all. And it is run by Justin Lasagna, who had the audacity to claim that pretty much they had invented D&D or something in those lines, something that level of stupid, and eventually were sued by Wizards of the Coast, probably for no better reason than they are an absolute bunch of idiots. So Wizards sued them just for being fucking stupid. And now they have closed down, and I am begging to all the gods in every pantheon on the planet that we never, ever, ever hear from them ever again.
Yeah. So they the museum and all the associated, they have shut down operations. I was trying to find more information about it, but all we know is the fact that they have closed down operations, which is tragic. God, it's
oh my God,
so tragic.
Look at my hand of tragicness on my forehead. It's terrible, terrible, I tell you. So that's the only thing I have. There's also been some sort of controversy with the Gen Con Writers Symposium, but I don't think I want to talk about that much at the moment because I've tried to unravel everything, and I'm going to try to find somebody to talk to about that. That will be
well, the one link you sent me, the Eric Scott one, he definitely seems to have a more measured response, but quite simply, this is a very ugly situation for those people who need a quick rundown. Basically, Gen Con, Gen Con runs this Writers Symposium during their event, and it was run by an external organization, and the founding members of that organization were told they will not be returning back. And this turned into a kind of almost a one-sided war, where the people that were supposedly wronged made claims about the motivations behind Gen Con's attitude. Then the post you sent me basically expanded on it, said it's a much more complicated situation. There were issues on both sides. Unfortunately, as I've said, the only information that I found online on YouTube was, of course, right-wing trolls celebrating it, saying that they've fired all the woke people at the Writer Symposium. And so now I'm hoping that Gen Con organizers, they make a post discussing their side of the situation, because if they sit it there on their one side, then you have people defending them, but they are not themselves defending themselves, and they probably think it's best to avoid it. But when you have these right-wings trolls claiming that Gen Con is on their side, I think it looks badly on them unless they come up to publicly denounce what could be an incorrect narrative.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, like, as I said, I don't really want to give any other details that I think I know, because I've read both Eric's article and the statement of the people who've been fired. But I haven't read anything from Gen Con themselves, so I don't know. But one of the things apparently that was a matter of dispute is that they wanted to have a diverse cast of people at the panel, and only 2 people were allowed to come, but they wanted 4 to make it more.
So so the story that they gave them a certain fixed budget with the expectation that they were going to get 3 to 4 guests. Gen Con apparently on their side said they wanted to have have a diverse group of guests, and then the Writer Symposium apparently brought 2, and then earmarked the remaining money for all the other administration stuff that they do. Gen Con apparently didn't really like this and felt that their money was not being used correctly, and the organizers then threw it back in their faces and on their podcasts, or on their podcasts, but on their blogs and posts, and as well as Discord, claiming that Gen Con fired them because of their inclusivity, which does not really.
No. And to be honest, I mean, I don't know everybody involved in running Gen Con. Okay, but I know Peter Atkinson, and I'm sorry, I refuse to believe that he would have any issues whatsoever with inclusivity and diversity in a panel at Gen Con. I mean, we are talking about a convention that has allowed for years to have a panel called Queer as a 13th Sided Die.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm sorry. No, and I'm sorry. I know Peter from Facebook well enough to know that he's not that kind of person. So, no.
Yeah, so I'm waiting for Gen Con to make an official statement. But for those people interested, Eric Scott Debye, speculative science fiction author, game designer, he wrote something on September 12th, Writer's Symposium Incident. It's a very long read, so that's why we're not going to go into in detail here. Read through it, get your own opinions, and please comment on them below. Let us know what your thoughts are on the situation.
Yes.
But I definitely think it's complex, and I really hope Gen Con makes a public statement, at the very least denouncing this narrative that they are gone anti-woke, which I don't believe is the actual situation.
That's bullshit. That's bullshit.
So that is your second piece. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about NaNoWriMo's position on artificial intelligence.
Yes.
And it's the quote that was sent to me specifically, which we also want to be clear in our belief that the categorical condemnation of AI has classist and ableist undertones, and that questions around the use of AI tied to questions around privilege. Now, I have made statements about the fact that I think a lot of the people who hate on AI are doing it as a reflex action. I think there is, as someone who's been around technology, who was raised around technology, who was quite literally a salesman of technology for 40 years, 30 years, it's upsetting sometimes that people make a lot of knee-jerk reactions. There was a conversation. I was thinking of inviting Matt Francella, I think it's Francella, who's a cartographer who is very much on as a first line attack, in the war against AI, but specifically through cartography. And I made a comment that I legitimately have no idea how to tell. I can spot an AI image pretty easily. I'll be honest. I can spot AI writing, which I think a lot of people can't do. Just because of certain patterns and keywords that I can no longer use in my vernacular, because now I automatically think it's AI. Even if I wrote it, I'm like, oh, I just duplicated an AI. I got to delete this sentence, and that's kind of makes it a bad situation for us. But I said I have no clue what constitutes you can have an AI generate a map, and the few times I played with it, like, well, this is worthless. This has absolutely no bearing. So I almost want to ask them, like, what is an AI map? Is it just taking actually like, because there are websites where you can build dungeon maps, right? You can just assemble them as tiles and render a dungeon map. And I think that's fascinating. And there are tons of people who use it, but as a result, there are a lot of people who are professional cartographers who are kind of accusing those as being part of the problem. And I'm like, okay, is that an AI map, or is it an AI map you generate? But from my perspective, those don't look any good. So I don't know how to tell what an AI map is or what counts as an AI map. And that's been his fight. So it's the fight with AI is still happening. And then before I get your comment, I'll say this will swing into our D&D conversation, because that will also hit the news recently.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I don't know, because I haven't seen any of those maps. So I don't know. And because my beef with AI is not with the technology itself at all.
Yeah.
It is with the way that it has been trained and the damage that it is doing to people, and about the ethical frame surrounding AI. All these gray areas are too much. But the thing that bugs me the most about the use of AI is how much anxiety, how much suffering is causing on real human beings that personally I value considerably more than any technology that can provide any kind of imagery. So, but again, I don't know what these maps look like. I don't know where the database that's being used to train it come from. I don't know the legalities behind it. So I don't think I can have a firm opinion. So on this one, I need to take a rain check.
Yeah, that's like, for me, that's been an issue that because we talk about the fact that Grammarly is an AI system, and obviously we've seen the ethical use of AI within the scientific field and so forth, but and that's kind of comes down to I've noticed a few posts now talking, and they've been using. They've been saying we're rallying against the use of LLMs. They're trying to steer away from saying the blanket term AI, because they know that is creating, it's kind of the same issue when you talk about global warming compared to climate change. Global warming worked for a long time, but people were just like, well, I don't understand that. So now we use, in the last 20 or so years, the term climate change, which is more accurate, has been more accepted. But it was global warming for 20 years, from the 80s into the late 90s, all the way into Al Gore's special. But not long after Al Gore's special, we started to rebrand it. And now I'm saying that people say, well, we can't say AI because there's too many ethical uses of AI. And there's also things where AI is doing something quite despicable, but it's not doing what, like the way AI is analyzing stock market, the way it's doing that. It's not the large language model. People are talking about what we have an issue with are the large language model training systems, which is what you were just talking about, which is what we see with ChatGPT and AI, and now we're seeing it with music as well. My issue is I still feel personally that the volume on ChatGPT isn't being turned up. I think the problem with this system is that ChatGPT is getting so ubiquitous in our society, and so many people use it. Like when people talk about the evils of AI imagery, ChatGPT's user base dwarfs all other programs.
Yep.
And it's become so ubiquitous and so popular and so used. Both people are just saying, nope, you're not going to win that fight. So we're just going to go after the music and the art. And I'm like, well, yeah, but for us writers, you're basically telling us that our fight is over.
And I think that is the other reason why I don't like the current AI or LMMs or whatever you want to call it, scene. Yeah. And is that it doesn't address the true problems, or the problems that are truly huge, like what you just described. Whether we like to think about it this way or not everybody paints, draws, composes music, or has any interest in doing so. But everybody writes at some level or another Everyone writes, whether it is because we do it for work, because you're a writer, because you write letters or emails to people or posts in social media. Everyone at a level or another that uses a computer has to write something. So as you said, the user base for writing AIs is ginormously bigger. We are not looking into that, but not just because of the writers. We are not looking into that because, to give you an example, and I'm going to use, which is something that is not happening, okay? I want to stress this. But in my company that I work on, my day job, we do an awful lot of, I don't know how the word in English is, licitaciones, which is when you present a bid to get a public contract.
Yes.
Okay. If we were using AI, we could be doing those 5 times faster. Literally 5 times faster. We are not doing that yet because of confidentiality issues and because it's just too risky for us. But it would be. So it would put an awful lot of people's jobs in jeopardy. That is what I care about. That for me is a big deal, and that we are not looking into. We are talking about artists, yes, and that is very valid, and that is absolutely something that we need to think about and fight. But make no mistake, the number of artists who will lose their jobs because of generative imaging is a fraction of the clerk and office people who will lose their jobs because of writing. And that is a much, much bigger problem.
I always love the irony of the film Her, which is a film about AI. Scarlett Johansson played the voice of an AI that Joaquin Phoenix falls in love with. And in the story, his day job is writing letters for people that don't want to write letters for themselves. And the irony, of course, is that we haven't found her as a real life analog yet, but his job has already been completely removed from society. Did you hear the story about the musician? I say loose terms. He's a musician that wasn't getting much success. So he created dozens, if not hundreds, of AI artists on Spotify, created hundreds of AI songs, and then created hundreds of bots to listen to those songs constantly. And he generated from Spotify. And this is the reason why it's hard for me to hate him, because all he's doing is stealing money from a corrupt corporation like Spotify to the tune of $10 million. And he did this only through the use of bots and AI music and generative content. He basically milked the system. I'm actually almost upset that he got caught, but that shows you how the fight is real. And that'll spin us into the Wizards of the Coast story. Now, Wizards of the Coast had, we always had this issue with what the CEO says and then the company's policy. And we had this recently with Evil Genius Games that were talking about their AI policy, and then the CEO goes to a Bitcoin conference and talks about all the stuff they want to do, despite their company's position being the fact that they weren't going to be employing blockchain technology. And then he goes to a symposium talking about all the stuff that they have, and he wins an award, and there's a video for it, and everyone's just like, you can't have both. And so with Hasbro, they had a policy that they will not be employing artificial intelligence in their stuff. I'm going to be taking a look. Of course, so we had controversies with people accusing them of using AI, and then the artists had to come up and defend and say, no, that's a legit piece of artwork. But then at the same time, their CEO talks about how they plan on embracing artificial intelligence. But once again, people go, well, that's a conflict. I go, well, no, wait a second. He's just saying they're not going to use generated artwork within their books. He didn't say that they weren't going to employ AI in some capacity. And that comes into that trigger word of AI. When someone's like, we've been using, we let our writers use Grammarly. That's an AI system. We're not using an AI LLM to create images. We're not doing that. But he talks about There's not a single person who doesn't use AI somehow for either campaign development or character, in reference to his play group of 30 or 40 people regularly, which I love. I was like, oh my God, how in the world? I guess only a CEO of Hasbro could have a game group of 30 or 40 people. Like, what the hell? And he says, a clear signal, we need to be embracing it. And basically his implication saying, no matter how controversial large language models are when it comes to trying to disenfranchise writers and artists, it is clear that their consumer base wants these engines. And so there's a conflict of interest. This is according to him. He's saying the fact that from their perspective, their audience wants these systems employed, which comes the same way that Google and Apple, all of their corporate announcements have been entirely centered on how much they're embracing AI, even though nobody wants it. They go to Google, and Google now implements their AI, and everyone hates it. But
okay, but there's one thing about that. Okay, and to kind of do this quickly, because we've been at it for 20 minutes, and we've said that we were going to do this in smaller chunks, and we are failing.
Well, we have. I mean, we've gone through. We've done 4 different pieces of news. They just happen to be all related.
I know, but anyway, firstly, I'm going to say something that it's perhaps going to be, people are going to be upset that I say this, but I wouldn't be surprised if he were right. Okay? And the reason I say this, yes, we personally hear an awful lot of people against AI and blah, blah, blah. But when a company came to Kickstarter to kickstart a very, very popular board game second edition with hundreds of AI images, that had zero negative impact on their campaign. Zero. Overall, people didn't give a shit.
You're referring about Terraforming Mars?
Yes. And I'm going to say something else also very controversial. The only reason that people are unhappy with Google's AI is because it's rubbish. But
yeah, that's not very good.
If it had worked, if instead of recommending glue to keep pizza together, had recommended to actually powder the cheese so it binds everything better, which it wouldn't work either, for the record, but it would make more sense, okay? People wouldn't be laughing at them so bad. We have been against an awful lot of Google's AI because it doesn't work. But if he had, I'm sorry, but mostly it would have gone, yeah, it's been implemented. Get over it. So I think that he's probably right. That the majority, the overwhelming majority of people, the silent majority who's not in our radar within social media, they probably would be happy with AI if it works.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say, but I reckon that if a GM could rely on a system where he says, oh, remind me of so-and-so and generate a combat situation, and then you get all the scene done, so you don't have to improvise everything 100%, and it is perfectly adaptable and, perfectly workable for your table, people won't be complaining about that, regardless of whether it is AI or magic. They won't care. So from that point of view, I find absolutely abhorrent what he wants to do. I am glad that I released my video a few weeks ago about me giving up on D&D because I can't be asked anymore. But I reckon that he probably is more right than we would like him to be.
So with that, we can talk about D&D. I don't know if you want to put a little pregnant pause if we talk about D&D.
Yes, let's do that.